Out of 1 billion Indians, there are barely a handful who dominate their profession the way my guest today does. His name is synonymous with photography. So how's he done it? And much more importantly, what is he like? Well, here he is himself to answer those questions as I introduce you to India's best-known photographer, Raghu Rai. Welcome to the program, Raghu. Let's start with yourself and come to your photography later on. You were born in a family with 3 brothers and 6 sisters. Was childhood a bit of a crowd?
Well, my father, had a problem with the family planning department. So that's the way, it worked, but it was great fun to have so many brothers and sisters.
He was also very imaginative with the names he gave your siblings. I gather each of you has a very unusual name.
Yes, that is also there, because also, each time you feel something about when the baby is born, and the names are, given accordingly. So everything has to be responded with a bit of sensitivity, and not everything planned in a way that, Lal Singh and Ram Singh.
But did it make it confusing for the family to remember the names Daddy's given everyone?
That's true.
Now, he was working with the irrigation department, and you spent a lot of your childhood traveling around the country with him. What sort of childhood?
Along the rivers, canals. So it was that kind, living with nature. Otherwise, I can say my childhood was very normal and simple, but the only redeeming factor was that we were closer to the nature, to rivers, to canals, and every now and then diving into the canals and rivers, gave you certain, depths to explore and have fun.
Was your idea of beauty awakened at that point in time? Was it as a child that you had in this mind's eye of yours a sense of what beauty really is?
No, you see, at that, at that early age, you cannot analyze and think like that. You just live it. And that's the best part of being a child, that you just go on living and enjoying it. And later, maybe at this age, you can say, yeah, it did help me.
Were you a happy child? Was it a happy childhood?
Yes, really happy, but nothing very special. Nothing extraordinary to talk about, really.
Now, your father had one great dream. He wanted you to be an engineer, and in fact, you even trained to be one. But I gather you hated it.
Yeah, because doing 10 to 5 job with the government, at that time, those were the openings, in early 70s. And I worked with the government for a year, and luckily that job was meant for a year. And then I ran from Firozpur in Punjab, where my father was positioned, where I got this job, came to Delhi, and I said,
What did he say when you chucked up this job and ran away? Was he upset, or did he just take it in his stride?
When I also started taking pictures, somebody would ask me how many sons you have. He'll say, I had 4 sons, 2 have gone photographers.
So he cut the 2 of you out because both had become photographers. Yeah. He didn't approve of photography as a profession.
Not at all. Not in the beginning, but later, when he realized that, there was so much of it, the guy was putting in, and my brother was doing well, I started doing well. So then he realized that there is something to it,
That, of course, was a little later on, but when you ran away from Firozpur and went all the way to Delhi, how did you end up a photographer? Was it, in fact, your brother Paul's influence, or was it something else?
Yeah, you see, living with him for those few years, every friend of his will come with cameras, with photographs, and he had bags full of, equipment, lenses, films, magazines, but no clothes to wear. That kind of mad guy.
All his money was in the cameras.
Yes, yes. And I used to wonder, these are crazy bunch, a crazy lot, every time they talk about photography. So one day, just for fun's sake, I said, let me also take some pictures, not to become a photographer, but just to have fun. So this is how it started.
In fact, it wasn't just as simple as that, because one of the first photographs you took ended up as a half-page spread in the London Times. That's quite an amazing way to start your career.
That was very encouraging, very exciting for me, because, I took those pictures for the first time with a small Agfa super select camera,
The sort of thing people have as toys.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody will take you seriously with that kind of camera. But it so happened, the picture that I took, without being conscious about the fact that I was taking any picture of any great importance, my brother saw that picture and he said, wow, this is very good. And so I also laughed. I said, yeah. So he said, I'm sending a packet to London Times. So
what did you say?
No, I didn't know. I said, yeah, let's send it.
Did you think the picture was as good as your brother thought it was?
It looked cute, you know, of a baby donkey, you know, standing still and looking so innocent and stupid, you know.
In fact, you make it sound very simple, but I gather you had to chase the donkey quite a bit before he agreed to pose for you.
Yeah, because you see, I've been to this village with my brother's friends, you know, taking pictures on a picture-taking spree, as they used to call it, you know. And I saw this baby donkey looking very sweet. I didn't have any big telephoto to photograph him from a distance, so I had that small camera. I was trying to get closer. The baby donkey started running. I started chasing, and all those children in the village, they started laughing. They enjoyed. The more they laughed, the more I ran, you know, just to have fun with the situation. And then the baby donkey got exhausted and stood there for me.
When the picture finally appeared as a half-page spread in the Times, was that a big moment of joy?
Yeah, it was a good feeling. But I must tell you that I am not the kind that who will hang on to such, you know, moments, you know, of or whatever, you know, recognition.
You've had so many of them, you can't possibly hang on to them. They've come literally one after another in your career, haven't they?
Well, yes, with God's grace, things have been happening, but then also, you see, the ability to move on is what matters.
Distancing yourself from achievement is a way of keeping your balance. You know, you've had an amazing career since then. You've had a number of prestigious jobs, but the very first chief photographer at the Statesman came your way when you were just 24. Were you surprised by your success?
No, not really.
You mean you were expecting it?
No, you see, I had this madness that I can take good pictures. Without, honestly, today if I look back, I can tell you that I didn't know exactly, you know.
But you were confident about yourself.
Yeah, and what to do. But, you know, looking at photography magazines, looking at, you know, the great photographers' work, the kind of pictures they've done, it's very easy to say, yes, even you can do it. And that feeling kept me going. So the challenge that I had during that time, you know, in early 70s, I accepted, you know, and I said, let's go on and see what happens.
You know, the job at the Statesman was very interesting because, in a sense, your brother was chief photographer at the Indian Express at the same time, and I gather one of your close colleagues who gave you your first job was the chief photographer at the Hindustan Times.
Yes.
So did the three of you end up as rivals, in a sense?
Absolute rivals. Oh, you know, when we'll meet in the field, you know, we'll look at each other and, you know, keep a watch on each other, who's doing what, you know. And because at the end of the day, who gives the best picture, next morning you get to see it. So it was a lot of fun, you know. There were days when I had the best picture. There were days when Paul was giving the best picture, or Kishore Parekh. So, you know, within few months, I was competing with them, and I used to say, baby, you wait. but again, with a very innocent feeling, without knowing much about anything in the world, you know, photography and photojournalism, it was very instinctive, but it was working.
And you also liked having the best picture when it was yours, didn't you? Now, you went on in 1980 to become the first ever picture editor of India Today, and you introduced a concept that today everyone thinks is normal, the photo essay. But at the time, was it a very unusual thing to do?
No, not really, because I'll tell you that basically in today's world, everyone knows, you know, that picture essays, you know, in Life magazine and Look magazine used to be a very common thing, you know.
But not in India.
Not in India, but sure, you know, people who are into this business, you know, they know, you know, what a strong picture essay means. And the fact was that, you know, when I joined India Today with Arun Puri, I had such an equation where we could do anything, you know, and change anything from the layout, from typography, from anything to anything.
He gave you that freedom?
Yeah. No, he didn't give it to me. I took it. Nobody gives it to you. You know, you have to be a professional, strong, honest self to be there at all the time, and then you get it.
Are you a very strong-willed, determined person?
Most of the time.
Do you get what you want?
It comes.
It comes. You don't even have to ask for it.
No, you have to work for it. No, you see, let me tell you that if you are at it all the time, with all the mind, spirit, and energies, then nature also looks at you and says, well, this child has been there, give it to him.
Do you believe in God? Do you believe in the fact that if you work hard, you'll get your just reward?
Most of the time, yes. And God or supernatural energies or whatever you call them, they are there to help everybody. And that's why we get connected.
You know, in your life you've had a series of awards, but looking back, would you say that the Padma Shri which you got when you were just 29 was in a sense the sweetest of them all?
Yes, in the sense that that was for the first time in India that they recognized a photographer. And that was very precious to me. And because photography in India was, and photographers were being treated, you know, as illustrators, you know, to fill up, well, a record picture of this happening and that happening.
They didn't have the celebrity status they do today.
Not only that, you know, that the participation a photographer should have in a newspaper or a magazine. I mean, usually I interpret, you know, a page of text as brickwork. And a great picture, a sensitive moment captured of a situation, political or social or whatever, is a window opening to the world, which connects you to the moment.
But that recognition of the photographer and the window that he opens didn't exist in the 60s and 70s when you first entered the profession.
Yeah, it was not so easy. I remember, you know, when I joined the Statesman, one of my news editors, very nice man, but he'll tell me, Raghu, there's this story we want to do. There is a space for 2 column maybe vertical or 3 column horizontal, which means, you know, that all your enthusiasm, excitement gets killed when you know that it's going to be published in this size. And I started from there. I'll go to a situation, invest myself completely into it, capture whatever I can, come back, and then make a print of this size. And his name was Sharmaji, and he'll look at it and he'll say, oh, you brought such a big print. And I would say, Sharmaji, take a look at the picture. So he'll look at the photograph and he'll say, yes, it's a nice photograph, so shall we make it into 4 columns? I said, Sharmaji, this is 6 column size print, you know. Maybe you can make it into 5 columns. So this is how it grew.
Every picture was
And there were days, you know, when in the Statesman I used to have half page or even full page photograph, 1 photograph, which has never happened in Indian newspapers of my
Today, of course, Indian newspapers, particularly things like the Delhi Times and HT City, find a lot of room for photographs. But do you approve of those opportunities, or do you think that somehow what they're giving us is kitsch?
Precisely, you know, it is more of, you know, entertainment level of photography, you know, which is colorful, which is of film stars, which is of models, which is of, you know, people, you know, who are doing all kinds of today's
Titillation of a sort.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not actually art.
You see, when a sensitive moment, you know, a picture, powerful photograph is printed in this size, which holds your breath, or which makes you drop a heartbeat, then it's meaningful, you know. Otherwise, it's all rang-birang, the color they use, you know, everywhere, you know.
Raghu, let's take a break. I want to come back in part 2 and talk about those photographs that make you drop a heartbeat and ask you a little bit more about what they really mean to you. We'll be back in a moment's time. Don't go away. Welcome back. My guest is the photographer Raghu Rai. Raghu, let's talk about your photography. In this wonderful little book, Raghu Rai in his own words, you write, when I'm told people can distinguish my work from others, it isn't very good. Why? I thought uniqueness was the real distinctiveness that made a good photographer.
Yes, to begin with, it is supposed to be good, you know. But when you've lived enough, you know, photographed enough, then you don't want your stamp, your attitude, your style to become so known and conscious that people can say, yes, this is Raghu Rai. It should be like life itself.
Unpredictability is the essence of it all.
Absolutely, that's the magic, you know.
In fact,
It keeps changing all the time.
You write something about that too. You say, I like my pictures to be like life itself, like a slice of life that has been captured and which, if released, starts living again.
You see, that's talking about energy. You know, you see, photography has a very specific purpose compared to paintings or any other art form. And when we try to photograph, you know, moments from life, and when we give it back to life, they should relate to life and ongoing affairs of life and the energies of life, that you haven't composed, you haven't stopped, you haven't, manipulated. It should be so natural, so spontaneous, that it should have its own magic.
Tell me something, is a Raghu Rai photograph a factual record, or is it a personal comment?
Begin with, it's a factual record which makes a comment and a statement of its own kind.
Is a Raghu Rai photograph difficult to understand?
No, you see, any powerful, sensitive image has complexity of, it is about complexity of life, about layers and layers of things happening in a situation. You see, my earlier work, which I did even with India Today and with the Statesman, was very physical, bold, strong, graphic, and it was, I'll say, visually more entertaining.
And your later work?
Has subtleties and intensities and a kind of knitting of life that goes on within itself.
So it's intellectually more demanding?
Absolutely.
Which means that the viewer takes out of it what he puts in.
Absolutely.
Is this what you mean when you say that photography is like good music? People can respond to it without analyzing it, but those who analyze will respond deeper.
No, you see, it's not necessary those who can analyze can respond deeper. There are people, viewers who can take one look at things, and can really travel into every inch of space that they experience. And they may not even put into words. And there are the people who can analyze and talk about it. But in both the cases, it can be equally powerful. Whereas these days the trend is, even in cinema, even in serials on TV, most programs, everything, newspapers, magazines, it's a level, everything has been brought down to a level of entertainment, visual entertainment, or even music, bulk of the Indian music, which is being dubbed in that Western beat, damn, 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 damn. It becomes an aggression on our sensibilities. And they feel very good about it. This is newness in Indian music, which is very meaningless to me.
So is a Raghu Rai picture something that is to be seen and felt through the heart, or understood through the head? Or does it depend upon the mood of the viewer?
Both. But again, first of all, I'd like to say that please don't say Raghu Rai's picture, because honestly, when I do my work, I do it with a lot of sensitivity and responsibility. But once it's done and over, and I don't carry my work like this.
You deliberately distance yourself?
Yeah, and Raghu Rai's work is no big deal for me. But when I'm doing it, it's very precious.
Of all the great subjects that you've tackled in your career, perhaps the most complicated seems to have been Indira Gandhi.
And Mother Teresa.
And Mother Teresa.
Yeah, two different individuals altogether.
How difficult were they? And how much of the interest for you lay in the difficulty?
Well, Mrs. Gandhi, during those years, things were more accessible. We had, situations where we could almost go into any situation and we could demand from Mrs. Gandhi, actually.
So they didn't put up barriers like the prime ministers of today do?
Not at all, and also there were not so many photographers, crowding each situation where they are pushing and pulling each other. And you had the access, you could even tell the security people or the prime minister that, look, prime minister, your security is bothering us, and she'll make sure that they get aside.
Was she conscious of the fact she was being photographed?
Absolutely, absolutely, every moment. I remember once when I had special appointment with her, and I was photographing during the day, and she said, in the afternoon that you come after 2 hours, I need to have some break. I said, all right. So in the afternoon when I went there, she was so exhausted. She was standing, holding on to a door like this. And me, like a silly guy, I walked in without my camera on. And by the time I took my camera here, she immediately came down.
But you got another lovely picture of her very early in her prime ministership. It's a gorgeous photograph of Mrs. Gandhi bending down to straighten her sari, peeking out of the window or the door, waiting for Kosygin to arrive. Was that a moment that happened just by accident and good luck? or were you in a strange way waiting for it?
No, you see, each situation, you have to be alert and responsible and looking for something different in every situation. Otherwise, these meetings of dignitaries and VIPs tend to be very boring. So suddenly, all of us, we were already inside her room. And, when the right moment, 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., he was to come in. And out of curiosity, she did this and looked out. And that was the moment.
So there's a sixth sense a photographer has to keep switched on all the time.
Even, why call sixth sense, I mean, our normal self, if we remain alert, we can do enough, Sixth sense is a much later thing.
Right at the other end of her career, you got a picture which in a sense symbolized for millions of people her fall from grace. A sweeper clearing into the dustbin posters of Indira Gandhi. You'd been very close to her up to that point. Did it hurt you when you took that?
No, I won't say, because you see, basically my responsibility as an honest, responsible photojournalist was to capture the truth of the moment. There were days when people worshipped her, touched her feet, they treated her like a goddess, and that day, after the emergency when they had the elections, she lost it. And that was my responsibility, to show it symbolically that she was not the Prime Minister anymore.
To whom, as a photographer, do you owe your loyalty, and to whom do you consider yourself accountable?
To the situations.
So truth, in a sense, is your God.
Absolutely, and even, I tell you, I mean, when she declared emergency, we all got together against her, and yet it was everyone's responsibility, writer, photographer's responsibility, that each time you walk into a situation where Mrs. Gandhi is going to be there, even if you hate her, you have to look at the situation all over again. And honestly, today when I look back, and we stood against Mrs. Gandhi, and when we look at today's politicians and today's governments, it's sad to say that I feel she was much better.
So for all her faults, she was a better person.
Absolutely, on many levels, and the level of corruption and everything, was different.
You carry a certain fondness for her in your heart, don't you?
No, you see, when you have to be honest, when you look at what you're getting today, you feel sad, So you remember some old moments, and old days.
As you span your career, and it's gone on over 40 years, there's a certain sadness because the quality of the politician that you sometimes have to photograph is diminishing in front of your eyes.
Yeah, even Vajpayee Sahab, I tell you, our present Prime Minister, I mean, there were days when you used to go to listen to him, and he was such a great orator, and his sense of humor, and his vision about things. But we don't see that Prime Minister anymore.
Raghu Rai, a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you.